Tonight's gonna be a great show. Y'all seen this brother on here before. I'm about to bring him on. But before I do, as usual, let's get to first make sure you hit the like button. That's very important for the algorithm of the channel. If you're just coming in and you're just seeing this, hit that like button. Um, Share it with your family, tell your friends and family. Some good information is about to be on. And I'll be right back after this commercial. Holy Ghost 3 coming soon. Shout to Cambada. All right, all right. We are back. You like that one, Q?
That was clean. That was clean. Where I get that at? Where I get that at? I need that in my life.
It's coming soon, my brother. Without further ado, family, want to welcome back to the channel, my brother Q Reeves. Welcome back, my brother.
Peace, 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 family. Grand, I often say grand rising, grand return, grand arrival.
Peace. Indeed. Hey, I was just telling the brother behind the scenes, it's always good having him on here because he comes with such a unique perspective and a unique look on things that pertain to spirituality and pertain to the occult and pertain to esoteric studies. I interview a lot of people, and a lot of times people give out regurgitated information. There's nothing wrong with repeating information because repetition is the key to learning. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's what I said. Get out of here. But the thing about Q's information is that some of this you ain't gonna find in books, family. So when you find a brother that's able to give out information like that, go to your mother now. That's very important, and it's an honor to have him on this channel. Very interesting show we're about to have today. Q, before we start, tell them your YouTube channel so they can check out some of your stuff.
Check me out. Check me out. I'm at Q Reeves on YouTube. It's CUEREAVES. Or check me out at qreeves.com. It'll to either my channel or my website. You'll find it.
Indeed. So talk to me about these regressions that you do, because that's how you coming up with some of this information. You're saying that you're not even calling it past life regression. You're saying basically that it's quantum, and you could go to the future, to the past. Like, this is some amazing shit, because, and I know you're onto something because of what you're talking about. It hits me, it resonates with me, but I never heard it before anywhere. So, brother, how do you come up with this?
Well, when you're in the flow, you tend to float to where you're supposed to land. And I realized a long time ago that there is a force that wants to tell us where to go, what to do. It's a force. I always thought, what happens if you tap into like a will? And I kind of like allow myself to will towards certain things. And eventually I was led into what would be called quantum regression therapy, QHHT, quantum healing regression therapy. And through quantum healing regression therapy, I was actually able to unlock a lot of things about an individual, like past lives. But as I proceeded forward, I then realized that not only can you access what can be perceived as a past life, you also can tap into future possibilities. Now, I won't call it future realities because it's not real until it manifests forward.
Right.
But you can tap into future possibilities. And if you get enough individuals to tap into the same possibilities, it's even more possible for it to become the collective reality. You have to think, we're in a dualistic system, whether they want to tell you this truth or not. So as a dualistic system, you have what we call a solo reality and a collective reality. And certain things trump the solo reality. Certain things can trump the collective reality. It's a balance between both worlds. But yeah, that's actually like when you're talking about people who are saying the information that are from books or regurgitated information. What we've kind of discovered in my realm of understanding is that you have two types of transmissions. You have what we call the data stream or the data package.
Yeah.
You get the channel.
Right.
Now, there's nothing wrong with the channel. The channel is powerful. I can turn on a TV right now and turn a channel on and learn so much information.
Right.
But imagine having all the channels stored within you. That you have to do certain things to unlock this digital self, to unlock more streams or more channels of you.
Right.
It kind of seems like it's the same thing in the life. How we started with what, 3 channels, and then it evolved to 10, and then 100, and now it's like 5,000, and then YouTube, millions of channels. So it's the same thing in the body. It's the unlocking. It's going through these steps to truly unlock and access really, really powerful things. So data streams is basically what we're talking about. Data packaging, that you've been instilled with this information at birth. And it's up to you to figure out how to configure oneself with the tools available. Your environment, the people around you, your heartbreaks, your ups, your downs, your highs, your lows. Is all associated to unlocking. Think of it like a key. You know, when the movies where they were like one key up, one key down, and they moving around to try to get to the perfect position to unlock you. That's what you're doing in this life. From God to man, from man to God. God to man to man to God. And it can happen so quickly. You could live a God one day and live immortal the next. Live normal. Live outside of the eye of things.
Right. So, and once again, family, I don't want anybody to take what I said wrong. Shout out to everybody who read books. Books are extremely important. They are here for a purpose. They have their purpose. I just appreciate what this brother brings to the table because it's kind of different. So shout out to everybody who read books. I read books. I have a huge library, learn a lot from it. So yeah, shout out to everybody in there. Everybody's particular way of learning, channeling, and disseminating information. It's all needed. And with that being said, Q, man, you had a video on your channel that was quite interesting, my brother. And it was dealing with the Orion Council of the Nine, and it was this transmission that you was getting from, I guess, a couple of entities, the Overlord and Laura.
It was 2 entities. One refers to themselves or herself as Allura. She considers herself a goddess of Asgard. There's a few more titles. Her real title is Allura, goddess of Asgard, sister guardian of Thor, keeper of internal and external records, ambassador of divine femininity, and ambassador to the Orion Council of Nine. That's her title.
So, and you know, you mentioned something important about signatures and how we address ourselves with our. So we're going to get into all of that, but just for context and for people to understand what's going on. You're putting a client under like this, like a hypnotic state, and then their voice changes, sort of like how does it like they're possessed by another being?
That can happen. Yes, they take on depending on how deep they go. It kind of think of the concept like a movie. If I was to watch 30 minutes of the movie, I'm not really as in depth if I was in there for 2 hours.
Right.
So the deeper, and then imagine 4-hour movie. So the longer you in there, the deeper you get engrossed into that reality. And as you get deeper, the voices could get deeper. I've had a client speak a language that I've never heard before. She referred to herself as Anika and was explaining how she was an indigenous native in America and how there was a relationship with the sea gods and that they separated them and he became angry and burnt her village. The crazy thing is when she was screaming and hollering in the pain that she was demonstrating in this session, I can't, where does that come from? Like, where does that come from? From me just telling you to breathe, because that's essentially, there's a few more steps to it, but for me just to simply tell you to breathe, and you're able to use the power of your breath to allow you to go to a space and place that affects you emotionally, that affects you mentally, that affects some of the decisions that you make in today's life. I have clients that go to times that they were abused as children, times that they were dealing with physical males or females being aggressive towards them in sexual ways, all that. And that they don't even know that them moments is playing over and over and over again in their subconscious like a record. And that's affecting how their relationship is with their husband, how their relationship is with their dad, how their relationship is with their son. They're all males. And if a male hurts you and it's on repeat in your mind, you're going to represent that in some way, shape, or form. It's dangerous. That's why these sessions are important. But let me not go on a tangent. So basically, my client is allowed to, in this moment, communicate to an energy within his mind.
Right.
And it's like having a conversation like you and me. The entity manifests itself in some type of physical form. Sometimes it isn't as physical. It's more like a light or more like a feeling. But then they start to communicate and discover the connection of each other. As they start to understand who and what they were to each other, we started to realize that every individual that is, let's say, illuminated, they have a key signature connected to them. Now, a signature can also be referred to as like an entity, a god or a goddess, but they have a key signature associated with them. Now, his key signature was a Norse god known as Thor. So he ends up finding out that he's associated to Thor. Through Thor, he connects to the sister of Thor, which then has allowed him to have full transmissions in association to past, in association to the Orion Council of Nine, association to the Anunnaki. They have a message to the collective about who the Anunnaki are, who the Orion Council of Nine are, who are archons. They actually have written specific messages to be said for today's live.
Yeah, this gonna be good. So what was these specific messages that's for this live? Let's start like that.
All right, so right here, they said they wanted everyone to know that the connections that I'm going to be speaking on, these signatures, these entity integrations,
right?
These were agreed upon and established by both parties at the beginning of our soul incarnations.
Okay.
So they want to make sure that that is clear, that that the ones that they're speaking on, the Allura connection to my client, like this is what she's saying. She's saying that this was a connection that was agreed upon at his soul incarnation. That does not mean all things connected to us come at the beginning of our incarnation. Okay? But this specific entity was there at the beginning of his soul incarnation. So that's like saying that you have something with you since the beginning of you, that it has kind of been there lifetime after lifetime as a hidden hand, as a hidden figure, as a hidden sister, to be there to help him or her, because there was times he was feminine as well, but help him or her through the different trials and errors of this earth matrix. All right. She says these symbolic and loving connections and transmissions are to be held sacred and respected in the highest regard always. So the first thing is they wanted you to know the concept of one God or one creator is an extremely false narrative. They write, this one God narrative is one of the biggest lies and follies fed to the collective consciousness of humanity. God is not a singular term or affirmation. It is, in fact, a plural terminology describing many and beyond numerical scoring. There are as many gods and goddesses as stars in your night sky, if not more. There are as many gods and goddesses as the sand crystals on the ocean beaches, if not more.
That's a lot.
There are many demons, archons, angels, and so-called half-bloods beyond numerical scoring. As the universe is infinite, so are the numbers of gods, goddesses, and the alike. The spiritual community has created and connected with the so-called source creator. This is also false. There is no one mighty creator being, energy, or deity that sits on the edge or beyond the grasp of time. Your source creator is the infinity and expansiveness of the universe itself. It does not reside with one body or one supreme being. As you are already well aware, there are so many so-called creator gods that exist today and have existed throughout the vast expansiveness of time. We all have the ability to create and expand from that which we create. Even your most archonic AI, NPCs, and background players can create. Creativity is not a right. No, creativity is a right of all beings, regardless of their function or purpose. That's deep.
Yes.
There's no supreme God above all. However, there are many who have obtained mighty knowledge and possess certain key signatures that allow them to be displayed and worshipped as a god or goddess. As diversified is the human populace, so are the gods and goddesses. Pause it right there. Now,
okay. Yeah, man.
For them to admit that robots, NPCs, AI are not outside the realm of creating,
right?
They have movies that suggest that humanity could have started with a robotic origin. And I always thought, where does a robot come from? I mean, it has to come from our imagination, but where does it come from? Now, I know that you have the black hole, you have the Andromeda system, and then you have us. Some say that this Andromeda system was an area of robotics, of conscious machines, of transformers, if you want to get an idea of what conscious machines can look like. And that these conscious machines figured out a way of making themselves more organic. Now, I don't have any proof. It's just a theory. It's something to think about based on what was just said, that robots, AI, NPCs, background players, they get the option to create too. Because you often think they're out the loop. Like they don't matter. Like they're just NPCs. They're just background players. But then that don't make sense when you think of the universe. Make sure everything is of purpose. It doesn't matter if it's in this universe. It has to serve something. It has to be a part of or connect to something. If there's an end, there's an out. So if it's here, it got to be here for something. So I thought about that. I said, wow, that's real deep for them to say that, for them to admit that. Now, this is what they say about archons.
And tell the people who are archons, for those who may not, what are archons?
Right. So some theorize that we are divided amongst two warring fractions. One fraction, you will refer to them as potentially the Anunnaki, and they often associate themselves to a pantheon. And the reason why I use the word pan, because we as the Black community are aware of Black Panther and how the Black Panther, the Black Pan, has kind of represented freedom, equality, because even theories that the real Christ is an entity known as Ben Panthera, which was a Lyran, a feline entity. But let's not go into like pseudo. Just know that it connects to the melanated people. This pan frequency, this pantheon. So this pantheon of the Anunnaki is usually influenced by an entity we refer to as Anu. Now, I'm not here to get into Anunnaki. I'm not a specialist on Anunnaki. I'm just kind of helping you understand how they've expressed it to me.
Right.
This Anu entity is kind of responsible for the head, that he, heaven, head, that he is associated as a head or a mind deity, that he when some people say the brain is divided into two fractions, the left side is masculine, the right side is feminine. When someone say Anu will represent that masculine side, that it would be this melanated God that represent the supreme of the body, and it does not fall far from possibilities. If you think about the scale of the cosmos and where we sit within it. But then on the other side, you have what we refer to as archons. Now, these have been associated to Nordics. Basically have these Nordic entities, which are sometimes associated or responsible for archon angel-like beings. This is why angels are often depicted more like a Nordic species, blonde hair, pale skin, blue eyes, that concept, because they're actually associated more to their culture. So I kind of said it, you basically are dealing with like two superpowers that were rising along the same time. It's no different than if you were thinking of like Lemuria and Atlantis. All right, so your Lemurians is the pantheon. Your Atlanteans is these archons. And they figured out how to harvest energy. So instead of the Anunnaki, who figured out how to harness antimatter or ethers, the etherical plane, access to the etherical plane, where this is basically called thought manifestation, that they can figure out how to make things happen in reality through thought manifestation. You have these other entities who figured out sciences, physical manipulations of mass and matter to make things come into existence. These are your Atlanteans. So you have like your master scientists / doctors in Atlantis, while you have like your Babas and your like gurus in Lemuria.
Right.
Think of the same as this pantheon and archons. This is what they say archons or angels. Archons or angels are the most common name given to beings and deities of higher power or consciousness. They have a benevolent or malevolent nature. They could be good or bad. You are already aware of this. However, archons are mostly controlling entities with the sole purpose of influencing other beings, specifically humanity, to do their will in their ways in their bidding. Each of them carry a warrior energy along with various other diplomatic and political powers. This allows them to either forcefully or peacefully infiltrate energetic and physical vessels. They literally dwell within the chakras. Some archons have gone on to influence and enslave humanity, while others have chosen to aid them in their evolution. Either way, it's never wise to surrender to an archon. Regardless of their intentions, I advise humanity to keep them at a distance. Cautious optimism, assistance through extension is helpful and productive, but attachment through possession is destructive and dangerous.
Wow.
So I said, all right, well then who are the Anunnaki? And they didn't want to speak too much on the Anunnaki, but this is what they did and was willing to say. It said the Anunnaki are not a part of the Orion Council of Nine. Although they did enjoy a brief stint on the council eons ago. Unfortunately, their lust for power, control, and calamity forced the council to place harsh sanctions on them and eventually impeaching them from any contact or political involvement with the Orion Council of Nine. So then this tells me that the Anunnaki, all right, so the theory is the Anunnaki started in Sirius. And that because of war and complications, you had these blue beings, you had robotic entities. There was a lot of information came to me about what happened in Sirius. But regardless, they relocated to the Orion system, the Anunnaki. What it's saying now is that if they were banished or moved away or out of the Orion system, then the only other options they have is to the Taurus constellation or here. So I wonder how many Anunnaki are literally here and may not even know that they are Anunnaki.
Get this high-quality human hair wig.
Now, Anunnaki would be considered a form of a signature, but it's more of a map where when you are these certain things, I'm a Nordic, I'm an Anunnaki, it's more of a directive. It's more of a direction. This is why I say a map. It gives directions. It kind of gives you directions to what you're supposed to be representing. So people who walk around and claim to be Anunnaki, Anu, Naki. Well, first, some will claim that Anu means to be reborn, to resurrect oneself, to allow oneself to let go of yesterday so that you can be anew in today. And then you have Ki, which also represents Chi, and Chi represents inner energy. And it's to allow the energy within you to become anew. So how do you do that? That's simply knowing how to breathe, having the right breath control, learning the power of one's breath. Many people can't speak without having the power of one's breath. So speech itself is associated to breath, but literally learning just that simple idea. You call that a breatharian, someone who is able to harvest energy and survive off of the air. Well, so is an Anunnaki. These are entities who have the same capabilities, but you have to be able to see how they play with these words, how these words are directives or directions to humanity who lost or forgot themselves, from God to man to God, to God to man to God. It's this constant system. So you have to be prepared to know how to transmute oneself, because right now we're in what some would consider this man process. But the only reason we're in this man process is because we have been captured. City life, most of us that are in what we refer to as cities, we're kind of captured men. We're not indigenous. We're not free. We're not able to roam. We're not able to travel. And you have to understand that traveling is as above, so below. If we're not able to travel here on this plane, do you think we're really able to travel on the deeper planes? They cap us here, they cap us there.
Wow. And for those who came in late, because they might think you're reading from something, you're getting this information from an entity that was channeled through a life, client.
Client named Craig. I have a client. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about Craig. Craig was a successful spiritualist, had a successful website, had a successful following, a successful channel, and the community he associated himself with backstabbed him. The spiritual community did him wrong, and it put a bad taste in his mouth. And he was like, I don't want to associate with spirituality like that no more. But somehow it became full circle where his wife got a regression. And in the regression with his wife, they said he needs to get some work done. So we went to him. And after going through the regressive process, he was able to unlock these two entities. One you refer to as Christ. He refers to himself as Yahshua. And then the other entity is this entity known as Allura. And he has these two beings that are connected with him 24/7 by choice. This was not something he had to do. This was something he wanted to do, to be able to have access to these entities, to this information. This is the decision that he chose. And from that, he has accessed at least 30 pages of information so far. And it's already been just maybe 6 days, 7 days.
So they're like his spirit guides? Would you say that?
That's exactly what they are. And it's more of a conscious relationship versus an unconscious relationship.
Right.
And what they want everyone to understand is that physicality, the rules of physicality, are the highest it gets. You get to feel the most here. You get to see the most here. This is the highest range. Now, of course, and without the body, one focuses more on senses. So you may have a moment where it's sense of sight, and it's sight, it's expansive sight. Then it might go into a sense of smell, an expansive smell. You ever wonder what these smells are? It's the dead in their smell state. It's the afterlife in these different states when you don't necessarily have the body to contain these senses. So you can shift through these different senses. But he basically asked a question. He has to sit in front of a computer or a pen and pad, and he'll start writing a response. Yeah, I mean, it's been some very interesting information that has come up.
So obviously, we would definitely want to know about this entity that refers to himself as Christ. We've heard so much about this Christ figure. Some people say Christ was a woman now. Some people say he's black. You know, he's so many. Christ is just one of the most famous names on the planet. So what did this Christ figure have to say during this transmission?
Okay. All right. This is titled The True Epic of Yahshua. And this was written by a client named Craig who had a regression, and since the regression sessions has been able to connect with the spirit of Yahshua, and him and Yahshua have had direct lines of communication and have notes, or in this case, direct communication or message from the entity you refer to as Yahweh. Like I said, this is titled The True Epic of Yahweh. He says, my story begins with an idea that has evolved and established itself as a universal truth. An idea that has captivated the hearts and minds of billions just within your realm. An idea that has inspired, but also depressed. An idea that has liberated, but also imprisoned. An idea that has brought joy, but has also brought tears. An idea that healed, but also destroyed. An idea that ultimately has saved no one. It is important to understand as we dive deeper into this that the real story of myself, Yahshua, have been perverted, distorted, and rewritten repeatedly throughout time. Due to this fact, there are many different and varying representations of myself. I have different names, different skin tones, different sexes, different appearances, different demeanors, different journeys, different powers, different beginnings, and different endings. The world has been tricked into the ultimate falsehood that there is only one true so-called savior, when there are in fact many so-called saviors. Yet there's only one Yahshua. And it's a convoluted web of lies, deceit, and perversion connected to myself. I will pave the path for you now, so you have a clearer and more concise picture of who and what I am. My story, like I said, begins with an idea and a bottle. A bottle containing genetic information and key blueprints. Many of you have been led to believe that I was conceived by magic, placed in a woman's womb on behalf of an almighty God. This is simply false. My birth did not come by a miracle of God, but by a miracle of science. I was one of the first hybrid beings to be artificially inseminated into a human womb. Not only was I the first hybrid to be artificially inseminated, I was also the first to be successfully birthed on Earth. Many hybrid beings before me were born and raised in controlled and at times artificial environments. This was necessary in order to track specific data and to ensure the safety and well-being of the individuals, as Earth's environment was and is still quite unstable. So to say that I was a miracle and the first is a true and accurate statement. I was the first of my kind and the first to exceed certain expectations. I am a hybrid of a lyran, which is a feline species, and Procyon race. Now, I'm not going to even get into the Procyon.
It's a wow, boy. It's a wow.
But I also have aspects of the Nordic and what you have called Pleiadian race within my DNA. Specific aspects of these races were implanted into strains of my genetic code to enhance certain abilities and to allow all of the signatures that were locked within me unlocked and ready to be utilized. These specific mixtures also gave me my true appearance of an albino, which did have blondish hair and bright blue eyes. Very much unlike the Jesus or Christ that you're familiar with today. My mother is indeed a human vessel named Mary, but she is not a virgin. She was contacted and later abducted by the Procyon race and repeatedly experimented on and sex. We don't want to say the word. Mary has specific codes locked away within her that the Procyons needed to explore. They found after trial and error, the only way to exploit these powerful codes was through sexual trauma. This is why, in order to obtain Christ consciousness, so to speak, sexual trauma is often involved.
Wow.
It begins with my mother, as it does for all of human collective. Because his mother was abused, that implemented into him. So everyone that is connected or calling on this Christ energy is also calling on sexual abuse and sexual trauma, which leads to pornography. That's why Kirk Franklin had that pornography addiction. And I give you other examples as well of a lot of people who have pornography addictions, and a lot of them are Christians. A lot of that doorway opened up through the doorway of Christianity, simply because the entity Mary was of sexual trauma. He was created from sexual trauma. It was an experiment. This is why in order to obtain Christ consciousness, sexual trauma is involved. It begins with my mother, as it does for all the human collective. Our mothers can be the greatest bearers of love and wisdom, but can also be the givers of unrelenting trauma and discourse. That's a line right there. See, people sit here and be like, this is evil, or I'm not really here to judge good or evil. I'm here for application, and I can apply this statement to my life. Our mothers can be the greatest bearers of love and wisdom, but can also be the givers of unrelenting trauma and discourse. So indeed, I was born to Mother Mary and here on earth. This is true. But as I just explained, the process in which it took to manifest is completely different than that of the religious or ancient texts. I have no real physical father to speak of, at least not in the realm of earth. My father is some Procyon male, or the characteristics of one, since many of them had their way with my mother, so it's almost impossible for me to truly know who my father is. This was another trauma inflicted upon me and everyone that pulls from me. This trauma, the trauma of not knowing the Father. How many of you have grown up without a father, or without a father who loved you? How many men and women have suffered the trauma of having a father who was never there? How many men and women have suffered the trauma of having an abusive father? How many men and women have never knew and are still searching for their fathers? All this is connected to me and more. The number is too unbearable to reveal. So at this moment, we're going to have to change the course of this topic. My mother was later married to a man named Joseph, but we called him Joseph, who was an artisan and a tradesman from Egypt. I was around 5 years of age at this time that I already had begun my spiritual journey, and I was capable of reading at that time. I spent much time outdoors playing and connecting with the earth. I felt a great sense of connection with the Great Mother, as if I already knew her. I could sense her presence, and I can feel the power of the environment all around me. The warmth of the sun itself felt different to me. I felt connected to it. The water tastes different. I felt different, as if the energy of the world was flowing through me. I can hear and sense everything. You can witness this progress in the movie Man of Steel, Superman. This is a great movie to discover my true story. You will see Clark Kent, Superman, having these experiences throughout his life. It's the truest example you will ever find of me and my journey from childhood to adulthood. Please watch it. I extended myself to certain aspects of Hollywood so my truth can be written, so it can find its way into the consciousness and subconscious minds of millions. The only way for us to do this sometimes and not get caught is to incorporate it into superhero movies. There's a little more. Want me to keep going?
Let's because I want to get to because I know the people got a lot of questions in the chat. This is some like real interesting stuff that you are dropping here. Yeah, channeling. Interesting, right, y'all? Give me some questions in the chat because they've been posing questions the whole time. I think a lot of people were one thing I seen them talking about is how Christ is a collective consciousness. So I guess they were a little thrown off by this one entity calling itself Christ because they're looking at humanity in general as Christ consciousness or a certain consciousness as Christ consciousness. So they feel like certain entities are tricksters and they want to take a name all to itself when it doesn't belong strictly to one entity. So what would you have to say about that mind frame, that mindset?
So I asked the energies the same question.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that if Brother Rich was to put a vote on his page, how many people have been baptized?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They've been baptized in the name of Yahshua, in the name of Christ. Mm-hmm. This is a action that was written about by a deity that we refer to as Christ or Yahshua. So they say in order to activate a signature within someone, you have to experience something they did. Now, in the Catholic Church, they call it like stigmata, where you're experiencing the same pain or torture of Christ. But the same concept happens through different ancestors or powerful beings, that when you put yourself into certain circumstances or you put yourself into a certain cadence or rhythm, you kind of align yourself with the being. So people doing that physical action of baptism has kind of activated or turned this entity on within them. That's all I'm saying. I believe Christ consciousness is a collective consciousness. I also believe that we have what we call a collective reality and a solo reality. So we have a collective Christ consciousness, but then you have these solo rogue individuals out here claiming Christ consciousness as well, and in 16 years.
Right. No, indeed. Q, do you have access to these entities outside of the clients, or are these entities strictly associated with these clients? So if you want to contact the entity, you have to call this specific client?
No. I'm able to connect to a range of beings in regressive therapy.
Okay.
Now, I've only had one entity ever verbally speak something to me. Like I literally heard its name. It was not my own self speaking to myself, because that happens as well. This was a completely different cadence. It was slow, it was raspy, it had a little echo to it. But I heard that entity. Now, do I have the ability to speak to certain entities or certain spiritual entities? I can, or I do. And it's kind of like a response, like an intuitive response, just kind of saying what I feel. But I feel like that's what I do on my channel anyway. Because I haven't had, I started in 2019. I haven't had the opportunity prior to then to get into like the theologian aspect of it, the sitting down and really reading. I would have loved that opportunity.
Right.
That wasn't for me. So because I got thrown into it this way, I kind of just adjust and realize that if I just trust my response, trust myself, trust my guides, trust the energies that connect to me to say something that's going to resonate to someone. It ain't meant to resonate with everyone. They already tell me that. It ain't meant for everyone to get this. But you're going to say something, even if it's wrong for everyone else, it's right for that one person. And that's what we care about. We want to care about getting to the ones that can see things through the chaos, that can see things that's not always done through such a structured system. Because some theorize that's the system of the Father. Everything's so ordered, so structured. And how do you tap into the divine feminine if you're always following the philosophies of the Father? Wake up at 8 a.m., eat breakfast at 8:30, pay your bill, you know, all this chaotic things that keep you from learning your true potential and who you really are.
Did any of these entities ever tell you how, maybe more specifically, the divine feminine fell? I always just hear patriarchy, and that's like a, you know, the common answer. But have you ever gotten a transmission that might be a little more different or specific than what we have heard so far?
So what I heard was that the divine feminine started from a memory. So basically in darkness is nothingness.
Yes.
And then there's the thought, or the thought of what is thought. And to think about what thought is can bring forward a memory. And the memory was of a previous simulation. So if you think of where we're at now, we're in a simulation that is masculine ruled. Now things are changing, things are shifting, but it has been for a long time been a masculine system or a masculine structure. So some say what we live is in like an echo, and we're echoing the same experience. For example, right now, they say on a spiritual level, we live the life of a sperm cell. We're not living the life of an egg cell. We're living the life of a sperm cell. That's aggression, fighting. I got to get to the egg. I got to get to the bag. And we're destroying and fighting any of our brothers and sisters to get there. And until you realize that the egg chooses you, that the mother Gaia, she chooses her flock. And she's allowing fleas on this planet to do exactly what fleas do. And what do fleas do? Irritate the planet. But what happens when the planet gets irritated? It gets scratched. Scratch is symbolic for motion. And that's what they've expressed to me more than anything. When a person gets stagnant, when a person is no longer in motion, that is the greatest evil that they could do to themselves. Said that people who aren't able to be in motion, like when their minds, not amnesia, there's another term when you no longer kind of are in your right mind, not schizophrenic. There's one more where you lose track of time.
Dementia? Is it dementia?
They say dementia patients is some of their greatest vessels.
Ooh.
Because they get to take over these individuals and no one suspects them. They get to murder. They get to do, they leave homes. They say these people are able to get possessed of certain people that you would never expect. Homeless people, elderly people. They possess them to do some of these the craziest things because they become not in motion. And some of the homeless people know this. That's why you sometimes see them spinning in circles, because they know that the moment that they stop, something could get a hold of them. The moment you have to understand that you are a pulse. You are a sound before you are a light being. You are a memory before you are a thought. You are an idea before you are an action. You live forever being a memory and an idea. You don't live forever being a thought and an action. Someone's going to do something better than you. Someone's going to do another action better than you. Someone's going to think something that's grander than your own thoughts. But when you can leave an idea, aka a blueprint, when you can leave a blueprint, when you have a blueprint, something that the future generation can go back to as a point of reference. And these is done through your actions, through the motions, through the things you do in life. Your life is your blueprint.
Let me ask you this question. I got a super chat question. And before we continue, by the way, show Q Reeves some loves. Let me put your Cash App down right here. What's your Cash App, my brother?
$ Q Reeves right here.
Q, okay. The same way it's spelled on the screen.
Yes, sir.
I got my brother Q Reeves Cash App. Hold up, where did that go? Where did that go? On the screen. All right. Make sure y'all show Q Reeves some love, and also make sure y'all show the channel love. My B-Day was yesterday. Make sure y'all show me some B-Day love. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, no, it's important to support this brother. I really appreciate that, like I said in the very beginning of the show, the information this brother's coming with and his unique approach to the information. I'm familiar, y'all. I was familiar with Jane Roberts when I was younger. Then I just got hip to Dolores Cannon, and I know they was doing something similar. And to have a brother on here talking about this and doing this, it's good to have somebody that's tapped into that science. So make sure you'll show the brother some love so he can continue to do what he do. Cash App $ Q Reeves. And let's I want to get to the super chat question real quick. This sister wants to know, how do we book with you? And do you have any info on Nibiru? I have a connection.
Yes. So this kind of has me go back to we have a concept of a hero construct, that there was a hero, a Hercules, a savior, a person that is going to save you or rescue you. But what Nib Heru, according to what they've told me, is the other sun that we kind of refer to or as the second sun that's on the other planet X. Some believe that that is Nibiru on what we would call the outside, because as above, so below. So that would be the binary sun. We have our sun, that we have our red sun, and that would be the blue sun. That's considered Nibiru by some theories. But what I've learned is that Nibiru is actually in people. It's a command. Nib is a name for the Milky Way goddess. Nib or I think a nut. I'm not sure the exact term. But when you're claiming to be Nib's Heru, you are claiming to be a hero, a champion, a protector of the Milky Way galaxy, of the galaxy or system that you're in right now. It is a command to tell you to protect not only Nib, but Nib's Heru or hero, which is Earth. To be a guardian or protector of Earth, to know that you are here right now living as Nib's Heru, that you are a representation of the cells of the galaxy. And as you move, they move. When you move, they move. When you understand your importance, they get to expand their importance throughout the cosmos. So that's what they explained to me. Now, there are people who come from Nibiru. They're supposed from Planet X, Anunnaki. There are, Enki. There are things that tap into all of Nibiru. But I want people to be able to take something tangible away from what Nibiru really represents to the melanated and awoken community, that it represents a call of action, that you are here to be a hero, a champion, not conqueror to your planet and this galaxy.
Very interesting. And how can she book with you and anybody else who wants to book with you, my brother?
You can check me out on qreeves.com, and you're able to check out the map. It's associated to your time frame. Pay right on the website. Have payment options. You could break it up into 4 payments. So I try to make it available right on qreeves.com. QUEREAVES.
Have you ever personally went under did a regression, Q? Like, has anybody ever did a regression on you yet? How did that work out?
Yes, so that's actually how I got into this. I had when I was regressed, I saw myself as a large white ape, or Bigfoot, for lack of better words. This is how I know that cone heads really exist, because Bigfoot's got cone heads. So like when we see the movie Coneheads, think of that as like Bigfoot, but an albino, like when they don't grow hair. Like it's the same thing. But the teeth was weird. And if you go back to that movie, it was some interesting stuff associated to that. But they're a part of the Bigfoot Yeti family. They just albinos. They ain't got no hair. So in that, I was born with humanity. But it was weird because it was in phases. Like the first phase, they were like out the mud humanity. And we were like knocking them out. Bow, boom, boom. Because we're probably like 10 feet, 500 pounds, slaughtering them. Second wave, they come and they have like muskets and like weapons. But we still kind of like 17th, 18th century. But we were still able to hold that down. But a musket caught a tree on fire. And they saw the tree kind of affect us, because what we would do is when we would get wounded, we would climb to the top of the trees and we were able to get to the sun, and the sun would actually heal us. And then and it was a superpower to get the rays of the sun during that time, because we were so forested. Everything was so much trees that you'd be surprised how a world of trees can stop the sun from like really getting to the ground like that. So I just remember, like, when you get above the trees, that's finally when you see the sun or feel the sun. But when we get to the sun, it heals us. And if we stay out to the sun too long, it could hurt us. We fall back down, we fight. They burned up a tree. They realized burning the tree up is a part of like their strategy. They come third wave.
A Domino's order, carry out online or by.
But before the third wave, this is what messed me up. We were sitting in an encampment like Stonehenge. Like we were in Stonehenge type situation. And I remember us talking, but we weren't talking through mouth. We were talking mind to mind. But what you heard were grunts. So it made me think, damn. Even when we're thinking about like these animals and stuff, you just think that they don't talk. But who's to say they don't talk mind to mind? And it's just sounds, is kind of representation of what they're doing. But they're really talking, because that's what happened. So I remember looking at my wife and she was talking to me mind to mind, and she was like, don't do this. And I remember being like, bitch, I'm doing this. They violated, all big and bad. And I remember my daughter looking at me like, please don't do this. And I like brushed them both off.
Wow.
No lie. The third wave came. They were advanced. And they were laser cutting trees. They were like cooking our ass. And I just remember telling all my brothers, I'm sorry for putting y'all in this. We have to leave. Now, what we have to leave means, all right, I was the only white ape. Everyone else was melanated. I was the only white one. All the other apes were red, purple, blues, all greens, like Swamp Thing, like all different kind of like woodland beings. They start climbing up. No lie, bodies start dropping. Boom, boom, boom. Because for us to leave, or for them to be able to leave, they got to go through the portal of the sun. So you have to die during the day. This is another thing that made me trip out, because I thought about, what if melanated people die at night? Could that have a different effect versus dying during the day? If I'm going through this experience knowing that you're supposed to die when you're connected to something during that time frame. So they had to leave through the sun, and they ejected their consciousness out of their bodies and floated to the sun while their bodies was dropping. And I was bawling, and I couldn't leave through the sun because I was different. I had to leave through the moon. So I had sunset, and then finally when the sun set, I climbed up, and my body dropped, and I watched my body drop, and then I head to the moon. And then from there, an angel came forward and spoke to my regressionists.
Yo, that is wow. Wow. You know, there's videos on Instagram and TikTok now. They're showing like these wormholes of people going up back to the sun. You seen them? They float around on Instagram right now. Yes. So it's interesting that you said that.
Memories is a real thing. And memories is what keeps existence going. This is why gods do everything in their power to be remembered. Even if that takes them having to reincarnate as your Beyoncés, your Jay-Z's, your Jennifer Lopez's, all these influential people, because it's making sure that you still acknowledge them on a subconscious and conscious level. It's wild. It's wild.
Let me get to a question I seen. Where is it at? Want to ask this one right here. Brother Rich, ask him who dropped 2 nukes on Mars' atmosphere and wiped them out. Dr. John Bradenberg, The Faces on Mars.
Well, like I said, I am able to ask spiritual entities or spirits in regression therapy specific questions. Now, what I will tell you is what I found out is that there was a war amongst 2 brothers. The brother you know as Anu, and the other brother known as Alalu or Lelu. And it was said that during the war between these 2 brothers, and when Alelu bit the phallus off of Anu, that he violated law and that he was excommunicated and exorcised out of that star system. They said that he traveled until he hit the gates of Hades, or what we also refer to as the mouth of Pluto, meaning that he's entered here, our system. And it said that he actually traveled to Mars, and that the face that was on Mars was depicted to this entity known as Alalu or Lelu, which in another aspect is Lucifer. So it's this Lucifer entity that colonized Mars and then basically created a threat. And just like anytime there's a threat, if you don't address the threat, that threat can supplant you. So I believe that they decided to not necessarily use nukes, maybe something a little more advanced, but destroy various bases and make it where they have to live on the inside of a planet. And of course, when you live within a planet, you age different, but you don't get to experience the same level of existence as you do on the surface.
Let's get to this next question. Has any entity tried to physically come after you or shown aggression when in a session with a client?
Oh yeah, for sure. They be tripping.
Wow.
they be tripping. What? Like they are not happy I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So hell no. So first off, it's supposed to be they're mad. So there's a brotherhood called the Priest of Melchizedek's. These are like higher dimensional entities that are a part of a masculine cabal that is responsible for suppressing the divine feminine. They're doing everything in their might to make sure the divine feminine does not awaken to her key signatures or just awaken to the gods and goddesses associated to her, to her sisters that are with her on a quantum level. So they're doing everything from distractions to I don't even want to get into all the agendas, but they consider me a traitor, that I am a traitor for letting people know this is happening within them, and then showing them that this is happening, and then realizing they lost this job because of this being, that this relationship failed this thing because of this being, you're 300 pounds overweight because of this being. Like they're so arrogant with how they be like, yeah, I'm destroying you, and what you gonna do? And basically what I have to do is help the entities within people realize that you are within us. We're not within you. You are within us. And this is our body, our rules. And if we want to start to have rulership or dominance over our body, it's our right to. Now, are you going to get out, or are you going to work with me on making us the most supreme being we can be here? You're in me for a reason, no? You ultimately know that I'm something, right? That's what I'm on. Like we get to the nitty gritty for them to realize it's better to work with you than against you. This is the reality. It especially when most of them are in like looped experiences. They're doing something on behalf of something that's more powerful than them, and then they're doing something on behalf of something that's more powerful than them, and it's just like an endless cycle of stupidity. And I have to also help them realize that's an illusion itself as well. That y'all trapped in an illusion, y'all trapped in a prison as well, just regurgitating the same thing over and over again from body to body to body, while we get to experience tons of things. Y'all like slow, y'all like behind the curve. We on. You know how much stuff we experience, how much shit we connect to and access, while they're trying to use us to do old things, to use us to produce old ways. So it gets interesting. But yes, I mean, I've never had nothing physically happen. Nah, I mean, when I was in New Orleans, I was attacked by witches, but you know, that happens.
Wow. So somebody, Goddess Amani wants to know, how does one become a channeler?
You have to realize that you've already been gifted with the data package, that you've already been gifted with the stream. You just have to now start to dial into the channel. So just like I want to create a channel in the ground, I first have to know the land, where your body's the land. You have to then come up with a strategy, figure out how you want to channel, because there's tons of ways of accessing your own information: tarot cards, pendulums, water divination, automatic writing. I mean, there's tons of ways of channeling the information locked within you. You just have to figure out which one is associated to you. Now, regression therapy helps you understand your genetic imprints, kind of things connected to you. Like I had a client, she was like, I always kind of use tarot cards, but they just don't seem to like connect to me that much. I said, because you're not of the woodland realm. You're most likely of the oceans, of the sky. They use a different form of divination. Everyone's form of healing ain't different for everyone. Like if an Asian man was to go into a doctor's office right now, he needs one type of healing. A white man goes into the doctor's office, he needs one type of healing. Black man goes into the office, he needs one type of healing. There ain't no one pill for all. That ain't how spirituality works. So you have to start realizing what works with you, what doesn't work with you. 4 elements. These elements go beyond just when you was born. These elements is also a part of past experiences where you've developed yourself with them. There's some people who can stare at a flame and tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. There's people that can stare at a flame and tell you what type of baby is in a woman. This is fire magic. So that's channeling information. Now, it's not as easy to say some strangers, baby, but say like a man wanted to know what his baby was, the woman wanted to know what her baby was. They can channel the information that's within them. They just have to give themselves the right tools, the right modalities to make that possible. Accept that you are already a channeler. That's first. Don't even ask, how does one become a channeler?
Right.
What are the proper tools so I can increase my channeling?
Right. Indeed. No, indeed, definitely. That's the main thing, is to realize that you already are. We're doing it all the time. Some people do it on different levels than others. People do it consciously. Some people aren't even aware that they're doing it. So yeah, definitely. Let's see. Somebody want to know, is having past life regressions in dreams possible?
For sure. For sure. So this is a rather controversial construct, but you have experiences with what we refer to as energies. Let's call it the eternal realm, meaning they don't stop there. Everything keeps going. There's the eternal realm, and then it's our reality. We have our reality, the eternal realm. Where do the dead go? A layer of the eternal realm. It's level. But the eternal realm, okay? In the eternal realm, there are gods and goddesses that dwell in the eternal realm. Where does the eternal realm dwell? Within you. You house the eternal realm. So you right now, a body, house worlds. These worlds are worlds of eternal realms. And in these worlds, which are associated to your organs, you house beings. Now, are all these beings connected with you or working with you? Not always. Some have more connection to you than others. The theory is there's even a God inside you. And that if you can connect to your God that's inside you, when you transition, you become that God. The theory is it's in your body right now. But when you transition, you kind of enter that body. You become that God, that entity. So the goal is to become more conscious and aware of the God or goddess that you have associated or connected yourself with. And as you develop more and more of a bond and more of awareness, it's easier to find each other in the transition. But when you have no awareness of that entity and you pledge yourself to Yahshua or pledge yourself to things that the internet told you to pledge yourself, they're going to take you in. You're going to become a part of them. You go enter what I refer to as a foreign body. And then eventually from there, they place you inside of a being and you go through the sperm system and you get manifested and put out, and they sometimes get to dictate what happens in the physical realm, all while inside you. It's pretty deep.
Definitely want to get to this question. This is something I want to ask earlier, but it slipped my mind. Thanks for the question. Who are the 9 members beings on the council? And that's, of course, referring to the Orion Council of the 9. Do they have names?
All right. Let me see if I was able to get that question.
Thank you for the question, Brick City Media.
Okay. The Orion Council of 9 is an independent group assisting in various political activities, trade unions, and conventions of higher consciousness across the Orion system. They are not associated with the Pantheon or Archons, although they have had various interactions over the eons with them. None have bared any real fruit. That's all they told me. Now, I can probably get more. Now, I do have information about like Orion in association to like Asgard. That's a whole nother situation. But they didn't really give me the specifics of the Council of 9.
Right. No, indeed. All right, let's get to the next. Hold up, I just seen it. I lost it, y'all. I seen that. It was a question I want to ask. Well, let's get to another question since I can't find that one. Okay. Inventions. Where do they come from? I used to see them as streams of thoughts you could pull from the air.
Well, some theorize that we live in what we refer to as a multiverse of Earth.
Mm-hmm.
What they told me is that what we think of as physical existence is here. They don't believe in what we call physical existence outside of Earth. They, according to what I've connected to over time, they believe that all physicality happens on Earth, but not just this Earth, Earths. That there is a multiverse of Earths.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on how old you were, some people between the ages of 1 and 7 are really open and are really dialed in. So they're able to kind of tap into the different versions of the multiverse. This is why in one version of a multiverse, someone who died here didn't die there. So they're actually potentially